Hey, 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 it is an unstoppable day. And if it's Tuesday, it's another episode of the Unstoppable Story Show. Now, this one is going to be a tearjerker. So hopefully, in addition to having your pen and your paper, you have your tissue and you have your spirit of hope despite the obstacles, because we're going to be talking about a sensitive subject related to child human trafficking. But here's the one thing we know, that even in the midst of tragedy, there is reason to have hope. There is reason to understand that what you are going through is going to help you grow through, to help somebody else along the way so that they will not be abandoned and forgotten. That's what we're going to be talking about tonight on the Unstoppable Story Show with Terrence Leffridge. So come on in and bring a friend. It's Tuesday night, y'all, and it's time for the Unstoppable Story Show with Terrence Leffridge. Welcome back to the Unstoppable Story Show with Terrence Leffridge, where we talk to ordinary people with unstoppable stories so that you can focus on not what's stopping you, but what you are able to do. I'm your host, Terrence, the Unstoppable Coach Leffridge with Unstoppable Coaching Services. And we thank you for tuning in each and every Tuesday night to quality programming on the Unstoppable Story Show. And tonight is going to be no different. So I hope that you guys will come on in, that you will do what we always ask you to do. If you are watching us live, go ahead and put the number one in the feed. And if you are watching the replay, well, that's okay too. Just go ahead and put that number two. And also let us know where you are watching us from, because we definitely want to represent you and want to shout you out. And we want to let the world know that quality programming is not only happening in a city near you, but in a country near you as well. So come on in, swipe and share. Come on in, like and share. And hey, if you really want to go all the way out, why don't you come on in and start a watch party, because we've got some great information and a great story that we want to share with you this evening. But before we go there, I want to let you guys know about this phenomenal event that I am so glad to be partnering with, coming up on June 19th and 20th. On June 19th and 20th, I am getting together with my great friend, Mr. Velton Showell of the Leadership Dynamics Academy. And we are going to be sponsoring 17 hours of quality programming featuring real men. Yes, I said it, real men. It's the Real Men Speak Summit coming up on June 19th and June 20th. Well, you might be saying, Coach T, what is Real Men Speak? Well, I'm glad you asked. Real Men Speak is the culmination of who I consider, in my opinion, the real men from across the nation and across the globe that are going to come together and speak to you. The month of June is typically Father's Day weekend, and it's really when men get the accolades, when we get the first piece of chicken instead of last piece of chicken. But more importantly, it's when we step to the forefront and talk about issues in only a way that real men can do. And with all the things that are going on right now, from the COVID-19 pandemic to the pandemic that never seems to go away of racism and abuse of power, it's important that we hear from the real men. It's important that we hear from the real men and the real women who support the real men as we lead ourselves through this time of crisis into our new normal. So we are going to be having some phenomenal speakers from across the country and, yes, across the globe, coming into your computer screen, or wherever you may have it, on June 19th and June 20th. We're going to have some heavy hitter speakers like Dr. George C. Fraser of the Power Networking Conference and Dr. Dennis Kimbrough of the book Think and Grow Rich. It's a Black thing. We're going to have Anthony Russo from Be the Change organization, and we're going to have Jeff Martinet Jr. from the movement Make Every Second Count. And that's just to name a few. And what is just going to be missing is you if you don't register for this free event that's coming up on June 19th and June 20th. It's the Real Men Speak Summit, hosted by myself and my friend Velton Showell of the Leadership Dynamic Academy. Go on over to bit.ly/real men speak, and you can get all the details about this once in a decade. We're in a new decade, y'all. This once in a decade life changing experience. You don't want to miss it. Come on over to bit.ly/real men speak and sign up today for the Real Men Speak Summit. So that is definitely something that we want you guys to be a part of. We want you to come on in and make yourself known. And we definitely want to encourage you. We want to entertain you. But more importantly, we want to motivate you through this time of crisis. We want to lead you into the new normal so that you can not only survive, but thrive as you continue to live your life on the next level. All right, you guys. So let's get into tonight's show. Tonight's show, we're talking about another heavy topic. And I know you say, wow, Coach T, we got a whole lot of heavy topics going on right now. But here's the thing about it. There is distractions out there in the world. Let's just call it what it is. And every time something is happening and the world doesn't want you to know about it, we tend to create something else as a distraction to take away from those things, whether it's a distraction talking about the economy to take away from the health issues that are facing us in the pandemic, or whether it is abuse of power or militarization to take away from the hurt and the pain and the sorrow that is in our world today, or whether it is letting governments get away with atrocities only because they are providing financial incentives or political incentives so that you don't see some of the atrocities that are happening in foreign lands as well as on US soil. And that's one of the things that we're talking about tonight. We're talking about human trafficking and specifically child trafficking with someone who knows about it firsthand. She is author Dana Priyanka Hammond, and she is the author of the book Abandoned but Not Forgotten. Abandoned but Not Forgotten, that's going to be released on June 18th. Now, I'll tell you a little bit about Dana and then we'll bring her on so she can really give you the 411 about who she is. But Dana Priyanka Hammond is a mental health paraprofessional by profession, but she's the best-selling author. She has a number of books already out, but she's got this new book that's coming out on June 18th called Abandoned but Not Forgotten. It's a powerful memoir of Dana Priyanka Hammond, who, as a 4-year-old child, was abandoned in a train station in India. And through her life, she faced many trials and tribulations, from abandonment to abuse, assault, and being a part of a broken foster care adoption system in America. Yet she has overcome all of these obstacles stacked against her to become a strong woman thriving today. And her mission is twofold: to end the business of human trafficking and to scour the earth to find her birth parents who she hasn't seen in decades. Her goal is to ultimately do a documentary film on this journey so that she can see how she can support and make a difference for her own healing and bring hope to those that she meets along the way. And we are so glad that she has taken some time to join us here today on the Unstoppable Story Show. So let's welcome to the stage Miss Dana Priyanka Hammond. Hey, Dana, mic check, 1 2 1 2. Can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Unstoppable Story Show. How are you this evening?
I am well. Thank you for asking.
Well, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know you're doing a lot promoting this upcoming book, Abandoned but Not Forgotten. It is a heart wrenching as well as a heartwarming story. And we're going to hit both of those dynamics over the course of this show. But why don't you take a second and just, as always, I know you can do far better justice than I can in telling your own bio. Introduce yourself to the Unstoppable Stories family.
My name is Dana Priyanka Hammond. I'm a survivor of human trafficking, potentially adoption trafficking. But I came to the foreign land, which is America, from India, born and raised in India, grew up in America, and just to go through abuse and then becoming an overcomer through the circumstance of people saying you can, people wanting to see me dead, and people attacking my character, but to also prove that I am mentally stable compared to what they believe, and they just didn't want me to overcome and succeed in life, but I did not receive that, and I fought for myself as well as my future seed. Um, and this is why I have become unstoppable and becoming even more successful.
And unstoppable, yes, you are. Let me show a copy of the book. The book's cover is just phenomenal, and it is called Abandoned but Not Forgotten. You guys can see it on the screen for Dana Priyanka Hammond. Tell us about the book cover, because there's a real great, interesting story about the book cover.
Yes, it definitely has an interesting story. There's a meaning to my book cover. So the Earth stands for me searching for my birth family, scoring the Earth, trying to look for them as I am now. And the little girl, who is actually my daughter, she was the closest representative of me. So I used her just as the little girl looking for her birth family. And the hand of God that's reaching out is the one that actually rescued me in my life. And that has just been foreseeing me till this day. And it has not, that protection has not gone void. And it's still of current as of right now. And then the gold in India represents my inheritance that's in India, that soon as I'm able to return back home to my original motherland, I will be able to receive my inheritance.
I love it. I love it. And we've got the beautiful Samar. She's in her mommy's lap right now. So she may join the show at any moment now. So you guys just get prepared for that treat. We want to say hey to Jackie, who is watching us from Indianapolis. We want to shout out to Lotus Richey, who says, hey, Dana.
Hi.
Angela Etleen is saying, hey, hello, Dana. Uh, Lotus is saying that she loves the cover. Yes, we definitely love this book cover. So let's jump into it because I know uh, even though you are not that 4 year old little girl anymore, to continually tell this story, to write this story in a book, and now to go out and promote it. I know it's probably still a little rough sometimes to tell the story, but let's give our audience some history as to why this story and telling this story became important to you. You were left abandoned on a train station at the age of 4.
Yes.
from what you can remember, tell us about that time and then take us through your journey of abuse, abandonment, forgotten, shame, into the beautiful, prosperous, and determined woman that you are today. Take a couple of seconds and just tell us about your journey.
Well, after going through so much grief in my life growing up, it was every day it was hell for me, pretty much. From the time that I left India to coming to America, I don't think it felt like there was no rest for the weary. That's what I felt like. I had no rest as a little child and just growing up as a child. The very thing that maybe a child would need, I never received. So as a grown adult now, I became very responsible for myself as recognizing my boundaries, learning my boundaries, even though like it becomes second nature for people now as an adult of what boundary is like or what respect looks like for respecting others in certain categories or certain topic, how to filter yourself. That never became easy, and it still is not until this day. Because I'm responsible for myself, and sometimes certain things become hard because of my past. And my past, even though it was a valuable lesson, and it's I went through a lot just growing up by myself from the age of 4. When I was thrown in a rice sack and abducted in the train, and being scared and not knowing what's gonna take place in my life and where my life was going to be led and directed, it went from that to being rescued, and thankfully I came into an orphanage, and God knows what the orphanage intentions were. And I'm not saying that all orphanage intentions are bad, but I'm saying that I have the likelihood of being adoption trafficked, and many orphanages are the guilty people in adoption trafficking. And so a lot of adoptees don't realize that they have been adoption trafficked, as well as gone through some things. That they only are walking through life like I have. Oh, my parents didn't want me, my parents rejected me, and then you take on the self-pity of abandonment, and you carry that spirit with you, and it becomes a heavy spirit because you're not just lost in your identity, but you're lost in yourself, because you felt like the people who gave birth to you, it just rejected you completely out of this planet Earth. And when you're walking around like that, you feel like that's your truth, the truth. And a lot of adoptees, that's how they feel. And but I have to say is that that's not always the truth. That's not the case for a lot of adoptees, and that's not true. And so I think it's majority of the adoptees feel that way, where they now they want to discover who they are, they want to discover where the roots come from, and they don't know how. And that's what this journey is pretty much about, is going from a hellhole to now discovering my root cause, and if I can go back to my root and discover who my birth family is, I can show other adoptees and other people that they're able to do it too. And it's not impossible, because there are programs out there that can help you. There are people out there who's willing to help you. I mean, you can't do it by yourself, because it takes a village for anything to take place.
Absolutely. We're talking to Dana Priyanka Hammond here on the Unstoppable Stories show. We've got people watching us from DC. We've got people watching from Chicago. Thank you guys for tuning in. Definitely, as you come in, put your name and where you're watching us from. And if you got any comments or questions for Dana along this broadcast, put them in the chat, and then we'll try to get them on and get them answered for you. Now, Dana, as someone who didn't know his father, because my father passed away when I was 1, you were abandoned at the age of 4. Do you have any memory of your parents in your mind before that tragic moment happened at the age of 4?
Honestly, I don't. That's the weird part. And just like many people, I know I have an understanding since I've discovered in my later age, when I became an adult, I've discovered that really it takes a traumatic situation sometimes for your mind to even remember anything, to recollect anything. And anything prior to the age 4, I do not remember that. I don't recall what my parents look like, what their faces look like, what my family even looks like. I can only speculate, they're just like me, or maybe they have this feature or that feature. But I honestly, I don't know. I don't know. The only thing that I do know is the first traumatic thing that has taken place, which was the abduction part. And I don't know why I remember that part so vividly. And that was my first memory of India.
Wow. And that was the memory of being put over the shoulder of a man inside of a rice
Yes.
sack. I can't even fathom. I can't even begin to wrap my head around what that must have felt like. What from your recollection, what did that feel like to you? And was that the first time? Did you even know that the word abandoned existed at that moment in time?
No, no, I did not. I honestly really truly felt abandoned was when I experienced abuse with my first adoptive parents here in America. Abandonment didn't really I didn't really experience that in India. India was more like, okay, I'm going through a very traumatic situation that's very scary. I didn't know how to wrap my head around it, my finger around the whole circumstance. All I know is that it was really rough, not knowing where I'm going, what's happening to me, what's taking place. All I know is that my life was put in this stranger's hand, and God knows where that was. And if you know that oftentimes children, when they get abducted, it's either they're being adoption trafficked, or they're being sex trafficked, or they're and those are the people that's called untouchables, the people out in the streets. And then that's why, like, a lot of children you see out in the street that have become beggars, those are untouchables. The children who have become sex slaves, those are the untouchables, and that's the lowest of the lowest. That's a class that's even lower than the poor people. And people just treat them like they're dogs, not even better than dogs, and it's terrible. And that's why they call it the untouchables.
Oh man. And human trafficking isn't something that's new. It's not new to the United States. It's not new to the world. But it's really difficult to find reliable stats. As I was doing some research in preparing for this interview, I tried to look at the human trafficking stats for India, and it kept taking me back to like 2014. So this was like almost 6 years after you had your conversation with God to start this journey on creating this book. But even then, it was like almost 800,000 people were human trafficked from India to other parts of the world in that year. So, do you know any statistics about what human trafficking numbers are today in 2020?
Honestly, human trafficking numbers, I don't think they have legitimate numbers, because of the fact that not everybody gets reported. And not what's happening here in America, the numbers are so low. And but you there's so many more souls and lives that's being trafficked, but it's going unreported. That's my problem, that there's going on. Because if that happened to me in 19 let's see, I was found in 1990, no, 1984, about 1989. um then then God knows how many more people that is not being reported. And that even here in America, what's happening here, the numbers are not up to date. I mean, they can only try their best, because not everybody report a missing
Right.
child, or missing person, missing woman, or whoever that is. But
So
even if it's in organ trafficking, it's like you don't know who's missing.
So it's safe to say that the number that we probably have in our head is probably low, and
Yes,
then we need to think a little bit higher as far
yes,
as what the actual number is. I,
yes.
I understand, and again, thank you for bringing this issue to light through your story and through your journey. So, over the course of your life, how many adoptive homes were you a part of, or how many foster homes did you find yourself in?
Throughout my life, I found myself in two adoptive homes. Oh Lord, one, two, three, about three shelters, um, three, four foster homes, or five,
Wow.
and about one group home. Yeah, but they're all the same, pretty much, and then one orphanage.
But over
Oh,
the course of your life, you found yourself in 10 different families, 10 different situations, 10
yeah,
different places that was not your home. Did,
yes.
did being in those 10 different situations, did they change you each and every time, or did you find yourself uh, being changed over time, period?
No, for a child, it's very burdening because everybody likes security. And when you grow up being tossed from home to home, places to places, and then when you finally start recognizing the difference, it starts wearing on you, and you just want a stable life, and you're like, oh, can I just settle in? And I eventually started getting tired. Yeah, it's rough.
And what did that lead to? You talked about in your book that you started having some health issues. You started feeling certain types of way. You started having some bouts with depression. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, depression came after just being neglected with my first adopted parents, and I was very suicidal at a young age. And but the force that stuck with me, it stopped me from even killing myself. Actually, it was fear. Fear took place where I was just too afraid to kill myself, and I said, "No, I don't want to die like this. This is not the way to go." Even though I did not want to live on the planet Earth, and I felt like my life was not valuable, and because that's how I was treated, I was not valuable, I was not wanted by anybody, and no matter which way I turned, I just wasn't wanted. I just wasn't a lovable child. That's what it felt like to me. Like nobody wanted me, nobody loved me, cared enough to love me, and just willing to invest in me like that. And so when you go through that life circumstance and then grow up in shelters and foster home, that really wears on you. And eventually, especially when you really have a desire to have a loving family, to be loved by somebody, to be covered and protected, that and then you don't get that, that just brings in insecurity, brings in fear, brings in unstable life. And I grew up with the unstable life because of that, because of the choices I did not have, and the people who were put in my life, and their mistreatment caused me to be an unstable human being, as a teenager as well as a young adult.
Wow. Yeah, I can see that. I can understand that as we continue our conversation with Dana Priyanka Hammond, the author of the book Abandoned But Not Forgotten, here on the Unstoppable Stories Show. Dana, I worked in the foster care system in Illinois for 10 years as a child advocate. And so I saw firsthand going into homes of relatives, or going into group homes, or going into shelters, talking with the different clients that I had to talk to from all different age groups. So whether they were sexually abused 7-year-old boy all the way up to a 17-year-old girl that had already had 3 kids and had been all types of atrocities as a result of being in the foster care system. So I empathize with what you went through. The one thing that they had in common is they didn't know who they were. So how did that affect you in formulating your own identity as you got older?
Oh, it affected me tremendously because when I became a young adult and it was time for me to move out of the group home, as soon as I thought I was ready, especially from the small basic stuff that the group home taught me and in the stuff that I needed to know, it wasn't enough. It never was enough. And then because when I went out in the world, to start my own life, the insecurities brought it's an unstable life, a life that I just couldn't survive. I couldn't support myself. And I don't know if that's because I didn't have therapy, I didn't have counseling, I to keep myself stable. But I didn't know which pathway to go, which path to take, and I really felt it at a young age in my um, young adult life. Like I was going to die at the age of 20. I
Yeah.
literally did.
Wow. But there was somebody in your life that had been in your life all throughout the journey. And so even when you didn't think anybody was in your life, that person was in your life. And he made himself known to you in this pivotal point in 2008. Talk a little bit about the conversation you had in 2008 that really changed your trajectory on which way you were going today.
Well, the only being that changed my life, well, which it takes time, because if it took time to get to where I am now, and it's not no walk in the park, especially in identity, it took time even then. And so when because I was so lost in my identity and me not knowing who I was, it really took God to enter in my life. And when I heard his voice back in 2004, I came into recognizing who the Lord Jesus was. And I heard his audible voice call my name. And I've had such a life changing moment from then on because of that life changing moment in 2008. He gave me my first identity, and he told me, first of all, Dana, you're a child of God. Second of all, you are an author. And that's when I had a conversation with him, and he and I had a conversation, back and forth conversation, mentioning how am I an author and why is that my considered to be my first identity. And if many know the Lord, they know that whatever the Lord says, it goes, and he does not waver, he does not change, he changes not. And when he says you are such thing, you are such thing. If he says you're pink, you're pink. If he says the sky is blue, the sky is blue. He doesn't change his mind. And everything has to be obedient to him. And so he told me that I was an author and that he wanted me to write my story. And then he told me that there was going to be many more books to come after that. But he said, if you are willing and obedient, you shall eat the good of the land. And then I was like, well, how can I do this? I've never written a book before. I've never wrote my story before. This is going to be hard. I don't know if I can do it, because it's the hell that I went through. It's my experience from the age of 4 and on. Anything before 40 years old, I don't remember. So you want me to write this in a book? What do you mean? So he told me, you know what I want you to write. This is what I want you to write. And I was like, okay, well, how do I start? And he said, well, do it on Word. So there was this conversation, back and forth conversation, that he knew he had with me, and how to start, where to begin. And that was my first beginning of healing journey that he took me on, which little did I know it was also going to be my identity journey as well.
That is a powerful testimony. And I'm typing here in the background because I'm taking notes as well. But what you said is so powerful that we just have to put it on the screen. And that is the verse from the greatest book, in my opinion, ever written, second to Abandoned but Not Forgotten. But it is the Bible. And in Isaiah 119, it says, if you are willing and obedient, you will eat the food of the land. And that had to be fearful for you at the time when God told you that you are an author and you will create many books, coming from the situation that you come from, abandonment, rejection, abuse, neglect, into this ideology that you were going to pin these great things that was going to not only change your life but to change the lives of others. Where did you find that intestinal fortitude to become willing and obedient to that conversation?
Well, it took time. First of all, it took time. And yes, you were absolutely right. I was petrified. I was scared to death. Because why I say to death? Because I'm like, God, you're holding me responsible for over what? You want me to do what? I mean, I said, there's no way I can lead people. There's no way I can guide people and tell them this and that. And I mean, I know I'm not fully there yet, but I know I just barely begun because of the fact that I just released my story, the story that he wanted me to release. And because when he told me back then, if you are willing and obedient, you shall eat the good of the land. And he kept repeating that to me. And I finally understood what that meant. And I said, oh, so he was telling me, I'm going to take care of you no matter what. Just be obedient and just do what I say. And don't worry about what's getting ready to for the future to come and who I'm going to provide. I'm going to provide the right people when it's time. I'm not going to make you look stupid, because my excuse was, oh, well, I don't want to look stupid because, at the time, because of fear, fear had me bound, abandonment had me bound, rejection had me bound. My words on how I told my story, I would vomit all over people, and
Mhm.
it would make it look like I was the victim and not the victor. And I talked like I was the victim. And that's where I was then. But if you knew me from then to now, you can see the language difference of how I talk and how I walk. Even in my walk, it shows. Even in my personality, it shows. Because I'm not wearing it like a cloth. I'm not wearing the victim mentality or the victim mantle on me.
Right.
The mantle's not there anymore because I've been delivered. I've been delivered from abandonment. I've been delivered from rejection. I've been delivered. And it took that experience to walk through the healing journey just to get to where I am now, to be able to tell my story in a healthy way. It took a loss of my first book to rewrite this book, to even get here. And then when people do come against me, I just personally, I'm really quick at getting rid of people, because if they're um, toxic in my life, and if they keep attacking my character, I know for the fact that it's because they don't know me and they're not interested in getting to know me. If they were really interested, they would be genuinely interested in wanting to be in my life, not to be gone from me.
I understand. I appreciate that, and I think that's some great advice. As we talk to Dana Priyanka Hammond here on the Unstoppable Story Show, her book, "Abandoned but Not Forgotten," is going to be released on June 18th. And so let's flip to the other side. Let's flip to the encouraging part. Let's talk to our audience about how they can move from being abandoned and rejected and forgotten into a space of obedience and willingness so that they can live their life on the next level, focusing on what they're able to and to do and not what's stopping them. So, how would you recommend to someone who's watching this show right now that's going through something you're going through or been through something you've been through? How would you recommend that they find the willingness to be obedient and to follow whatever God is telling them to do?
First of all, don't let fear stop you. I know fear is the greatest enemy ever that stops you in your purpose, your future calling, whatever it is. Don't let fear stop you, because fear will, if it got you, it will stop you from your greatest destiny, greatest purpose, even your finances. Don't let fear stop you. And if you have to do it afraid, do it afraid. And because out of that becomes obedience. It allows you to, and don't think that you have to get from point A to point Z in fast term, because it doesn't
Right.
work like that.
Yeah.
Don't, second of all, don't skip the process. Allow yourself to go through the healing. Allow yourself to go through that hurt and that pain, because you know why? If you went through hurt and pain to get to where you're at now, you have to go through hurt and pain again just to go through healing. Allow yourself, and if you have to vomit, vomit. If you have to regurgitate, regurgitate, so you can become a better human being. Allow yourself to go through the process. And if you look at yourself and say, I deserve this, I want this, I want that, I want what that girl has, I want that strength, I want that courage, I want, if you want that, you can find that strength. Just dig a little deeper and walk through the process, and allow yourself to go through the process. Do it afraid, do it with the process, and do it because you love yourself, because you deserve it. Not because, oh, woe is me, everybody did this, so oh, what? Forget what people did to you. People are people, and people are used by the enemy. People are just gonna go against you, because you know why? They don't understand who you are as a human being. They don't understand your identity. They don't understand your gift, and they don't understand your calling. But that gift won't come out of you until you allow yourself to love yourself first. Love
Mm.
yourself first, and take away all the people. Get rid of the people, and allow yourself to be in the lonely journey that you deserve to be in. And it's not a lonely journey. You're not alone, but it is a lone journey. But you're not lonely. You're not ever lonely. Just know that. But it is
Absolutely.
a lone journey.
Yeah, there's a big difference between being alone and being lonely. You can be lonely in a crowded room if nobody in that room is on your same level, or if no one in that room is loving on you, or if you're in the wrong room to begin with. But if you take that time to be alone, hey, in the alone time, you get to build that relationship with him. And then you get to listen to him. You get to listen to him with two ears, and close that mouth that sometimes gets us in trouble, that mouth that sometimes gets us spouting the fear and not allowing us to move and fight that fear and do it afraid, as you said earlier. So there is nothing wrong with being alone, and don't get it twisted. Don't get the alone and the lonely twisted together. But I love what you said about loving yourself. And before you can even love yourself, you've got to know yourself. And if you might think, we might think, having not gone through what you've been through, Dana, that it's got to be really hard to figure out who you are and to know yourself and to love yourself when you didn't have that foundation growing up. So how did you find a foundation of your own despite not knowing where you came from or who your parents were? How did you build that foundation in yourself to know yourself and then love yourself?
Well, first of all, I had to discover that God loved me first, and there is somebody who wants me. There is somebody who loves me. Even though he's an invisible force and he's not a tangible, touchable mankind like any other human being, I had to experience his love first. And when he poured his love one day, when I was so void of love, I was depleted, like literally, I was very depleted from love. And I remember that time when he poured that love, my own two knees could not stand, and my knees buckled in, and I almost fell to the ground. Even that little love, and then what he shared with me was that that was just little amount of love that I couldn't handle, and that he had much more love to give to me.
Mm-hmm.
But when he meets you in your level, and he grows you from that level of what you can handle that year, then what you can handle the next year, it grows each year. And so when I finally started feeling confident enough within myself, and the love that I even started experiencing as well as for myself, I started valuing myself. I didn't see myself as less than or worthless, or and it didn't matter on what people thought about me anymore. Not anymore. Not especially if my life was derived by off of what other people said. And you know what, the funny part was that I grew up with people controlling me, people telling me what to do, what not to do, and that's what. And I always relied on um, uh, people's action. I relied on them telling me what to do. And independency was, I wasn't used to of that. I didn't know how to make decisions for myself. And then when I finally did, it slowly by slowly, I was like, I can get used to of this. It used to be the most hardest thing for me to even make even a simple decision, from whether I wanted pizza to a hamburger.
Yeah.
That was the scary truth for me. And believe it or not, that was very scary for me, because I was so used to people making decisions for me and control
Right.
and this and that. And then when I slowly got rid of that control out of my life, I was able to have control within myself. And that's what created even more stability. And then when I had the freedom of say, I had a freedom of voice all of a sudden. And then when people came in my life and continued to come in my life saying, no, Dana, you're this and you're that. And that now I can sit there and tell them, dude, you don't even know me. I don't know what you're talking about. So, and then it finally got old after a while, and I started getting rid of those people.
Isn't it amazing what you can do when you know that somebody loves you as opposed to somebody's trying to control you? I
Mhm.
mean, just it was your story just had a night and day turnaround when you recognize that you are no longer being controlled by the different places that you've been placed in, adoption institutionalization, as I call it, versus knowing that God loved you and God created you. And I heard you on another show say these powerful words that you recognize that because God loved you, that you mattered, and you recognize that because God loved you, that you really do exist. You're not just a ghost. You're not just somebody who just people pass by and don't recognize you. And you recognize that you had a testimony. And
Yeah.
I hear that testimony, and our audience can hear the testimony as it's coming authentically out of you right now. And it's just amazing to hear and see, because you now recognize that you know who you are because you tapped into whose you belong to.
Yes. I no longer felt invisible, and I no longer became invisible. Even though my words fell to the ground with many people, my words now, I realized it had, that's where the enemy was most afraid of, was my voice. And my voice was my greatest weapon, along with me telling my story. So that was the very thing that I was allowing myself to use. And I had to understand me first. When I understand me, I understood my greatest weapons in my own world. And that's what allowed me to finally walk in my purpose.
I love it. And Angela Elting says that you are truly unstoppable. Yes, indeed. And she has a question. You've been resilient throughout this process. What has been your inspiration or motivation, or who's been the mentors that have been there to assist you as you've gone through this process and as you're walking the journey that you're walking now?
That's a great question, Angela. Thank you for asking me that question. First of all, when you go through life of being depleted and not having anything, and even when you don't have anything to give and people come in your life and deplete you even the more, that's where your resilience come from, of not having, and being emptied over after being emptied, instead of being poured into, given into, and being mentored. It took years and years and years before I finally could find somebody who said, Dana, I want to be in your life, and understood my place of weakness. They didn't understand in the beginning that they became a seed planter in my life. That didn't even take place until my late 20s, maybe 27 years old. And that's a pretty long time. You guys got to admit that I finally received somebody in my life and got in who are actually still existing in my life because they became a seed planter in my life, because they poured into my life, and they still remind me of there's victory in the end, there's God in the end, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and they became my go-to people of who God is for me.
And that's fabulous. You know, God always sends us seeds, and He always sends us that ram in the proverbial bush to help us, to let us know that you don't have to do this by yourself. Even though you may feel abandoned, even though you may feel forgotten, even though you might feel like you're just out there all by yourself, there is always somebody that God has brought to put into your life, to ride that train through the journey of your life with you. Now, let's be clear. Not everybody who gets on that train is going to ride with you to the end of the line. I
Right.
love Ecclesiastes 3 because it talks about a reason, a season, and a lifetime. And that's the people that are coming into your life. They come into your lifetime either for a reason, to help you overcome something, get through something, learn something, or they come in for a season. It was just that time in your life where you needed that person to be there, or you needed to experience something in that season, and that person was that manifestation. But oh, when you find those people, those ride or die people, who are going to be with you through the hard times, is going to be with you through the train derailments, and to help you get back on track and to get those journeys. Those are people that you know that were God sent to you. And I know there's some people out there for you, and I hope that you continue to tap into them and utilize them as you continue on this journey towards finding your birth parents, and to the documentary that you hope to turn this into. And with that, I think you summed it up in this point, that people have to realize that even though that they may have been abandoned, or they may still feel abandoned and forgotten about, or feeling less than, they have to recognize that not all is lost. What do you put some meat on that bone when you say not all is lost, no matter what you've been through?
When God sent a prophet to speak to those dead bones, that's what I'm talking about. He spoke to those dead bones and they became alive. And if you feel dead in your life, you too will become alive. And that prophet says, spoke to those dead bones, and flesh came on, blood came on, everything came on. People were living. Not when I say not all is lost, it means whatever that you're going through that made you feel dead, and if you do feel dead, you can be revived again. Just like He rose Lazarus from the dead, you can be alive again. But it really takes one person to do that, and it takes God. It takes God. And because He says, behold, that I have an expected end. I have a future. I have a hope and a future for you. I have an expected end. And when I started going on a journey of discovering who and what God was really about and His characteristics, He told me one day, He said, especially in my late mid-20s, He says, Dana, I want you to, first He apologized to me for what I've gone through. And He sincerely apologized to me and said, I'm sorry for not being there for you, but let me be there for you now. And when I was shocked on how humble the Lord was, and He actually apologized to me.
Wow.
And then when He says, let me be there for you now, I promise I won't let you down from this day forward. If you just let me, I want to be there for you. I want to. And when He showed me that He didn't want to give up on me, and He wants to be there in my life, He doesn't want to quit on me, that meant a lot to me. I was like, man, Lord, you're the most realist human being that I've ever experienced. You're more real to me than anybody else in fleshly bones that I've ever experienced.
Right. More real to you than the people that you see walking by you on a day to day.
Right. And that's what I said. And then he says, you know, I want you to know the difference between the enemy's character and my character. And you'll see the difference. And he started pinpointing some differences out from the past, what I've experienced. And he's like, do you remember this? Do you remember that? Blah, blah, blah. I said, yeah. And he said, well, now start studying my character so you can know who I am and understand who I am for me. Because oftentimes religion says God sits on his throne and judges people. And he says, I'm not even about that. I'm not about that. I don't have time to be, quote unquote, a prick. I don't have time for that. You know, let's be real. Let's be real. Many people don't understand God's character. That's my problem. They don't understand. He has feelings just like us. And he told me that. And he shared that with me. He said, Dana, when you're hurting, I hurt.
Absolutely.
When you're happy, I'm happy for you.
Right.
And I'm not expecting anything in return. Here's the thing though. If you want to go to do education, to flourish yourself, if you want to have a degree, I have no problem in that. That's what people don't understand. I'm not stopping them. As long as it's not a sin, I'm not stopping you. I want you to grow. I want you to prosper. I want you to learn. I want you to have all that you can have. If you have the means to do it in your power of your hands, just do it. I'm not stopping you, because what you want is what I want too. That's what he shared with me. That's one characteristic. The other characteristics he shared with me is that God wants you to have the best life possible. He says, when that's Jeremiah 29, when that was shared with me, that there is a hope and a future and an expected end. He pinpointed out to me that's exactly what he wants. He's not a God who's going to put you, just automatically throw you to hell because, oh, you sinned here and you sinned there. He understands we're flesh. We're going to do things. We're going to be tempted. As long as we try our best not to do it, that's all that he cares about. But he wants you to have hope and a future and expected end. That means that to have life that more abundantly and to have prosperous life. If you can have a prosperous life in heaven, you can have a prosperous life here, and we're meant to have a prosperous life. And so the drive for me comes from not having, but also to continue on because of the one who loved me, and because I'm so afraid to stand before him, to not do what I'm supposed to do, which is to tell my story and write my story in a book. I don't want to face him because of what he's already input in me, and he did not give up on me. I do not want to face that. And that's what's causing me to keep going on, because one, I lack so much in life, and I've been 20 feet under, that I felt like I have nowhere else to go but up, even if I have to do it afraid. And that's what's given me the drive to do it.
Well, that is a powerful testimony, and from somebody who has felt abandoned and rejected and forgotten for so long in her life, to have found this and to been able to have this 360-degree turn and feeling about life because of that relationship, that is truly phenomenal. Dana, we could talk to you for hours about this, about your journey and about the book, but our time is short. So let's talk about how they can get a copy of your book. The book is called Abandoned But Not Forgotten. Where can they get a copy of the book? And tell us again when the book is going to be released.
You can find it on Amazon or Barnes & Noble, and you can actually get your pre-orders now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, but you can get your ebook right now as we speak. You're able to purchase that, and the print version is coming out on June 18th.
That's good. So you guys definitely, we want you to flood Amazon. Flood Amazon right now. Get, you can pre-order the print book. You can also order the Kindle book. It's ready right now. So for you people who love your iPads and you love your Samsungs and you love your tablets and you just can't wait another 2 weeks to get this powerful book, go ahead and go on over to, we have Dana's Amazon page listed on the screen right now, and you can get your copy of the book Abandoned but Not Forgotten at that link, as well as looking at all the other books that she has been a part of, because she has been, once she recognized that she was no longer abandoned and that she had not been forgotten, she's been doing that thing, y'all. So she's got many books out there that tells her story. And but this book is the book we want you to get right now, Abandoned but Not Forgotten. But now they also definitely will want to have a deeper conversation with you, Dana. So once they get the book, how can they reach out to you to have a deeper conversation with you, or to bring you in to speak to their group or their organization? How can they do that?
Well, I have a website out for human trafficking. So it's my main human trafficking website to educate people in differences in trafficking, adoption trafficking to organ trafficking, as well as a section about Dana where you can reach out to me or book me for event, a speaking engagement event or anything. It's called humantraffickinginc.com.
humantraffickinginc.com. Let's throw that up there on the screen so people can have that information. You can check her out if you want to book her to come tell her story for your group or your organization. Go to humantraffickinginc.com. Well, Dana, it has been a pleasure. It has been a pleasure to talk with you, to hear about your story, to hear about this fascinating book, to see your beautiful daughter there in the background. One, I'm sure the joy of your life right now. Hell, you don't put her on the book cover, so you know she's already a star. Let's make that money. So we appreciate you. And you know what? For anybody who goes through a story like yours, where they have come out on the other side, I always say to you, God, you don't look like what you've been through. Thank God that He came into your life at the time where you needed Him, where He could turn that frown upside down and make it a smile, and give you the ability to fight the fear and do it afraid, and to move forward with the hope in Him that you are going to reach all the goals that you're going to reach in the future. And I can't wait to have you back on the show after you have found your birth parents, and talk about that reconciliation, and to talk about turning this book into a documentary. So the door is always open for you to come back and tell the rest of the story. Will you do that for us?
Yes, I definitely will. Thank you so much. I appreciate you inviting me. I appreciate everybody listening to me. Thank you so much. I will definitely come back. Thank you.
You are welcome. I'll throw just a couple of final comments. Lotus Roche said there will always be obstacles and hurdles, but continue to break each and every one until you fulfill your mission. Angela said, very powerful testimony. Thanks for sharing. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dana, for coming on the show and sharing your testimony. God bless you. God keep you. And may God continue to travel with you so that you will know from this point forward that you have not been forgotten, and you are definitely not abandoned. Don't go away. I'm going to close out the show, and then we'll talk a little bit afterwards. Okay.
Okay.
All right, you guys. That is Dana Bianca Hammond. Make sure you get a copy of her book, Abandoned but Not Forgotten. Abandoned but Not Forgotten. You can go and get more information about Dana at humantraffickinginc.com, or you can go to her Amazon page and get more information about how you can order her book and all the other books that she has put out over the last couple of years. So I appreciate you guys for always watching always tuning in to the Unstoppable Story Show, where we talk to ordinary people with unstoppable stories. And we focus on helping you learn what you're able to do instead of what's stopping you. If you want to be a guest on the Unstoppable Story Show, you can reach out to me. Just simply email me at info@unstoppablecoaching.com. That's info@unstoppablecoaching.com. And who knows, you may be the next guest on the Unstoppable Story Show, where we talk to ordinary people with unstoppable stories. And as always, wherever you are in the world today, you know what I say. Don't just make it a great day. Recognize that you matter, you exist, and you have a testimony. So never feel abandoned, never feel forgotten, but always be unstoppable. We'll see you next week.